Oh my gosh. It is my 1 year anniversary diabetic week this Friday, February 18th. 1 year ago, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Over this past year, it has been quite the change in my life and quite the learning experience living with type 1 diabetes. And I'm here to give you a recap of my diagnosis story and really just talk about my past year of living with type 1 diabetes. So, I was diagnosed on February 18th, 2021. Prior to being diagnosed, I started having some symptoms over Christmas, going home to Ohio and explaining to my mom that I was very thirsty. Now, I've been thirsty for several years, and I'm not sure if that's related to my diabetes or not, but it wasn't uncommon for me to be thirsty in December. However, I remember I was more thirsty than I've ever been. So I told my mom that I believed something was wrong because it's not normal for someone to be this thirsty all the time. It's just not. And she knows that I've been thirsty for a long time. And she also thought it was weird. But once again, we just thought, well, I work out a lot. I'm very active. So I'm probably just thirsty, right? Like I'm sweating out all of my toxins. And so I'm just thirsty all the time. And that was in December. So as time went on in January, I started getting even thirstier. And I also was losing some weight. It wasn't anything dramatic yet. I just started losing some weight here and there. And like I just mentioned, I'm a very active person. So it wasn't necessarily weird that I was losing weight. I was really pumped actually that I was losing weight. So it wasn't a big deal to me that I lost 5 pounds in January. And I was more excited. I'm like, heck yeah, I'm working out. I'm not really eating any differently and I'm losing weight. Like it's a dream come true, right? To most people, it really is. So I didn't really think the weight loss was a huge deal. What really made me concerned was when I started having leg pain. So I am a huge runner. I love to run. I honestly run most days of the week. And I started getting really bad leg pain, and it was in my calf area. I would wake up in the middle of the night, and in both of my calves, I was having Charlie horses at the same time. It was like the worst pain ever. And it was happening every single night. I didn't know why this was happening. Once again, I kept coming back to, oh, and I'm an active person. Maybe like I pulled muscles in my leg, or maybe, it's restless leg syndrome and I'm running too much. Maybe I injured myself. I didn't know. I was kind of making up excuses as to why my legs hurt, but something wasn't right. And I kind of knew that in my mind. My body just didn't feel right because starting in February, I couldn't run anymore. I would wake up every morning and just walk on the treadmill because my legs hurt so bad that I couldn't run. And that was the moment that I realized I should probably go get this checked out. Like either something's wrong with my legs or I don't know, something's going on, but I need to get this checked out. Also in February, I started to lose my eyesight a little bit. And what I mean by that is my eyesight just started getting blurry. My whole life, my parents always said, oh, at age 40, my eyesight went. And so I'm 30. Well, I was diagnosed at 29. I'm 30 now, but I was thinking, okay, well, I'm almost 30. Like maybe that's what's happening to me. Maybe my eyesight's just going, and maybe I'm going to have to get glasses. And nothing ever seemed too serious. It just seemed like it's life, and that's what happens in life. And oh, well. What really made me go to the doctor was my leg pain, like I just mentioned. So in February, I decided to book a just primary care doctor appointment, and I booked it for February 17th. So it was the day before I was officially diagnosed with diabetes and officially had to go to the hospital. Ironically, I booked it for that day because me and my boyfriend were going on a trip to Puerto Rico the week prior, and I obviously didn't think that I was having a huge issue. So I booked my appointment for after our Puerto Rico trip. So a few days before I was diagnosed, me and my boyfriend actually went to Puerto Rico. And like you guys can probably imagine, it was wintertime and we went to a beach town. So naturally I was drinking pina coladas, which if you know anything about pina coladas, they are filled with sugar. When I think about it now, it just makes me laugh because my blood sugars were obviously already high. I did not know that at the time, but my blood sugars were already high and I was pounding pina coladas. Oops. We also went every morning and got breakfast, and I would always crave something sweet for breakfast. And this is not normal for me either. I am not a sweet person for breakfast. I am a savory person. I always want, like a granola bar, or I want some eggs. I never want something sweet. My boyfriend even mentioned to me, like, this is weird. Why are you ordering a cinnamon roll for breakfast? And I remember just telling him, like, I don't know, like, it sounds really good. I want something sweet. I've always had a sweet tooth, but it's usually after dinner and never in the morning. So it was a little weird that I was craving a cinnamon roll in the morning when we were in Puerto Rico, but it was also not weird because I've always had a sweet tooth, if that makes sense. So once again, it wasn't anything alarming to us that I was eating a cinnamon roll for breakfast, but something wasn't right. And I knew that because of my leg pain. My leg pain was my number one symptom that really, really bothered me. All the symptoms are different, but I feel like there's going to be one for every single person that really stands out, because you will just know that something's not right. Something about some symptom is just not your normal way. And so it's important to go get it checked. On February 17th, right when we got back from Puerto Rico, by the way, we got back February 16th, the next day, I went to my primary care doctor, and I went and told her about all of my symptoms, about the blurry eyes, me losing weight, my leg pain. I was having a little bit of headache. I was kind of tired. Also had some chest pain. The first thing that they wanted to do was an EKG to check my heart and make sure that nothing bad was happening there. Came back normal, which was great news. The second thing they thought was that I was pregnant. They made me take a pregnancy test at the doctor. They found out I was not pregnant. And so the last thing that they wanted me to do was a blood test, because they didn't really know what was wrong. We did a blood test, and she said it was going to take about 24 hours to get back, but go get some emergency for your leg pain. Everything should be fine. So I went home, just went on with my life, went back to doing some work. The next morning, I got the text message that my results came back. So this is not from the doctor. This was from my medical app that I have, because they just upload the test results there, and then my doctor will call you later if there's anything to talk about. I got these results and I'm reading through them, and at one point, it says glucose, and the line is way out of the normal range. And I knew nothing about blood sugar, glucose, any of that prior to being diagnosed. And so I called my boyfriend in and I'm like, hey, let's look at this. Everything else is normal except for my blood glucose. It says it's at 425. It says the normal range and at 120, 140. And so we're Googling high blood sugar. What does that mean? Everything on Google kept popping up and saying diabetes, 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 diabetes. And me and my boyfriend are like, no. You don't have diabetes. There's no way. There's no way. It doesn't run in my family. I don't know anyone that has diabetes. It's not a real thing. So we're like, okay, this must be wrong. I probably just have to take some pills and we'll go away and it's fine. And then a few hours later, I'm actually at the eye doctor checking my eyes because it's blurry. And I'm like, shoot, I need to get some glasses. So I went to the eye doctor so he could prescribe me some eyeglasses. While I was at the eye doctor, my primary care doctor called me, left me a voicemail because I was at the eye doctor. As I'm driving home, I call her back, and I remember I was pulling into my apartment parking spot, and she basically told me that my blood sugar is very, very high. She believes I have diabetes. She talked to the endocrinologist within her doctor's office, and the endocrinologist recommended that I go to the emergency room as soon as possible. She's telling me all of this on the phone, and I am freaking out. Not to mention, I don't even know what diabetes is, and she's telling me I need to go to the emergency room as soon as possible. She told me to go to St. Joseph's in Denver, just go tell them that your blood sugar is high. She told me that she was going to send over all of my blood sugar information and they'll be able to handle it from there. So I get off the phone with her and I run upstairs to the apartment, and I just immediately start bawling my eyes out, telling my boyfriend that I have to go to the hospital right now. I have to go to the emergency room. Something's wrong with me and I need to get it fixed right now. Thankfully, my boyfriend was there. He dropped everything he was doing and we rushed to the emergency room. So we get to the hospital, and mind you, I can't see anything because I was just at the eye doctor, and they do whatever to your eyes, so I can't see a thing. It's blurry. And I'm going into the ER with my boyfriend, and I'm like, I don't even know why I'm here. My doctor told me to come. My blood sugar numbers are high. Like, help me. And thankfully, there was no wait at the ER that day. So I went right in. The initial admin nurse person took my initial information, my symptoms, all of that. And then they immediately put me into a ER room and hooked me up to, those wires and all of that. And I sat there for about an hour before I talked to a doctor. An ER doctor came in and told me, based on my blood sugar numbers, I have type 1 diabetes. He went into a lot of detail about type 1 diabetes, and a lot of it at the time was way over my head. I had no idea what he was talking about. And after he gave me his long speech about type 1 diabetes, it was about lunchtime. And me and my boyfriend were like, we're hungry. Like, I want to eat. So we asked the nurse if he could go get Chipotle and we could eat Chipotle. Well, I didn't really understand that at the time that eating makes your blood sugar go up. And so I asked the nurse this, and he was like, I don't think so, but let me check with the doctor. So he came back and basically said, the doctor doesn't want you to eat right now. We need to focus on lowering your blood sugars first. I'm like, okay, whatever, fine. I can wait a couple hours. Little did I know they were going to make me wait 24 hours before I could eat. And that was very difficult because I was starving at lunchtime, and they made me wait another 24 hours before I could eat. But anywho, I stayed in the ER room only for a couple hours, and then they moved me to the intermediate care of the hospital. They were debating moving me into the ICU, but decided that I was not that sick. I don't really know how they determined that, but I guess my levels just weren't high enough to be in the ICU, but it was still a serious condition that they needed to fix. So I went up to the hospital room, where I thought I was going to be only there for a couple hours, but I happened to stay 2 more days after that. My nurse, she was great. Her name was Jordan. She came in every single day and helped me really understand what type 1 diabetes was, what I was going to have to start doing, all of that stuff. So while I was at the hospital, they wanted to start an insulin drip in my body to get my blood sugars down. So, they put up that, I don't know any of the terminology. They put up that bag that was hooked with a wire to my arm and started an insulin drip. I do not know how much they were putting in me at the time, but it was on me for 48 hours. The first night that I was there, the doctors and the nurses, mostly the nurses, had to come in every hour to prick my fingers and test my blood sugar. They wanted to make sure it was going down and not going back up. So they had to come in every hour. So the first night I didn't sleep a ton. My body was very tired, so I definitely slept, but they were coming in every hour to wake me up to prick my fingers, but nothing bad happened, which was great. Every 4 hours, they drew blood from me in the first night. I was really hoping that second day that I was going to be able to go home, but my blood sugars still were not low enough. I think the second day they were in the 200s, high 200s, like 280, and that wasn't low enough for them to send me home. So they asked me to stay another night. Ask is a interesting term because I didn't feel like I could leave, and they made me stay another night. But the really good thing was I actually was able to eat breakfast that day. So going 24 hours of not eating was very challenging, but they let me eat breakfast that following day. And the one part that I really think the hospital could have done better was explaining to me what I can and cannot eat. So when they were explaining to me what diabetes was, they said, like, I can't eat any carbs, basically. And or minimal carbs. I can only eat minimal carbs. And, I have to eat a lot of veggies. And the nutritionist came in and showed me the plate. Oh, if any of you know what I'm talking about, it's awful. They show you literally a picture that looks like it's from 1960s. And the plate of food that I'm allowed eating is 90% vegetables, like 10% potatoes, and 10% meat. That math doesn't add up, but that's okay. We'll say 80% veggies, 10% potatoes, and 10% meat. And I remember looking at this like, this is what I have to eat for the rest of my life to stay healthy. Like, is this a joke? And I remember the nutritionist came in and was telling me about the food I have to eat. And she asked me if I like to snack. And I said, yes. And she asked what I like to snack on. And I said, chips. And she said, well, I'm sorry, but you can no longer have chips. If you're going to eat chips, they have to be cheese chips. And when she said that, you should have seen my face. I was like, what? Tortilla chips and nachos are my favorite thing in the world. And this dietitian basically told me that I could never have nachos again. And I was very overwhelmed. So they went from telling me like basically that I can't eat very much, that, that I ate before, like mostly veggies is basically what I have to eat, veggies and protein and fiber, all that jazz. And then literally when it came time for me to eat breakfast, my nurse said, get whatever you want. No big deal. And I'm like, okay, wait, you all just told me I can't eat any carbs and I have to eat veggies. But now I'm looking at this menu and I'm confused, like what I can eat. Can someone give me an idea of what I should order? And my nurse is like, get whatever you want. The chefs will let you know if, you're going over your limit. And I'm like, what? It was so confusing. And so I ordered a breakfast burrito because why not? And they didn't say no. So they delivered a breakfast burrito for my first meal after being diagnosed with diabetes. Doesn't that just seem odd to you? They went from telling me I could only eat veggies to letting me eat a breakfast burrito. Anywho, I don't even understand that still to this day. They could have done a way better job of explaining what I can and cannot eat. Anywho, so I got into the ER on a Thursday and I was able to leave about 48 hours after on a Saturday. The doctors and nurses came in the morning on Saturday and told me that my blood sugars are now at a good level. They've been staying there for a while, so that's great news. And I'm able to go home in a few hours. So thankfully, we finally got out of the hospital Saturday afternoon around 3 or 4 p.m. And that was really the moment that I went to living my life with type 1 diabetes alone. I mean, I was a little scared to leave the hospital because that's truly the moment where you don't have anyone else that knows anything about diabetes anymore. Like me and my boyfriend don't know anything about it other than what we just learned over the past 2 days. And so it was very, very overwhelming to, go home and try to live my life without the doctors and the nurses there. And I first off just want to say thank you to the doctors and nurses that helped me because I was in a very nervous place. I didn't know what was going on, and they were great for the most part throughout the whole process. I want to say thank you to my boyfriend who has been there since that moment and has supported me along the way in figuring out everything associated with type 1 diabetes, and really just support all my friends and other family members who have really supported me over the past year of having diabetes. If you are new to diabetes and have a similar story like me, comment below. I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to learn more about you when you were diagnosed. And one thing I want to tell you is it's going to seem very, very scary in the beginning, and it does get easier. However, every day is stressful, but in a different way. And so don't worry about learning all the information at once because you will learn it over time. And it does take time to learn it because it's a huge disease and there's so many aspects of it. And so you will learn it as you go, but make sure to have a support system in place as you do that, and make sure to find other people that have type 1 diabetes like me. And there's so many other people out there in the world that have it, that share their stories. And so it's really important to find those people. So one, you feel connected, but two, because they share their information and you can learn from it.
So make sure to do that. If you've had type 1 diabetes for several years, longer than me, thank you for watching. I appreciate all that you do too, because I learned from you all from sharing your stories, and that's how I learn. And so now I want to share my story so the new diabetics coming on can learn something too. And maybe I'm teaching all of you that veterans of type 1 diabetes something too. I don't know, but really just want to be here to share my story. So one, you don't feel alone. Diabetes sucks. Don't do it alone. Watch these videos and join my email list below, and let's stay connected. And don't forget to introduce yourself. I want to meet you. But anyway, that is a long story of my diagnosis story that happened 1 year ago today. And yeah, here's to all the others living with diabetes. I'm out. Talk to you later.